Welcome back to Wittenberg Academy. This is Greek 1, and we're ready for lesson 19 on page 58. The imperfect and aorist indicative middle. So in the aorist, this is the true middle form, not the passive form that has a different form. But in the imperfect, it really is middle passive. So learn the imperfect and aorist indicative middle of luo, and the second aorist indicative of leipo, which is section 700 and 702. So let's take a look at that. On page 265, we have the forms of luo. So the second column there gives the imperfect. And so note it's as the imperfect is formed in the present as well. As the imperfect is formed in the active voice as well. It has the augment, the temporal augment, the epsilon, plus the stem, and then the endings are directly added. And so the imperfect middle passive endings are amen, u, eta, amatha, estha, anta. And you just have to learn those endings like you have to learn any other set of endings. The aorist, likewise, as it's formed in the active voice, it's the epsilon temporal augment plus the stem plus a sigma plus the aorist endings, amen, o, ata, amatha, asta, anta. Now again, you can learn these as different endings, or you can learn the personal endings as he gave you in the last chapter, plus how those coalesce with the connecting vowel, which is alpha for the aorist and epsilon omicron for the imperfect. I find that to be more trouble than it's worth. I recommend you simply learn these endings as they are printed here. And then on page 267, you see the aorist middle for leipo toward the bottom on page 267. So it gives you second aorist middle. So the aorist stem, you remember, is lip, lambda, iota, p, lip. Because you know that because when you memorize leipo, you remembered its principal parts, right? Leipo, leipsomai, elipon. So that's your aorist active. So your aorist middle passive is epsilon plus the second aorist stem, its irregular aorist stem, plus the imperfect endings, right? Amen, u, eta, amatha, estha, anta. Remember, these second aorists take endings that are like the imperfect. So that's all there is to that. And so how do you tell the difference between a second aorist and an imperfect? Well, you just have to know that that verb is a strong aorist, or takes a second aorist, and does not use the alpha set of endings. Well, back on page 58, section 202. A couple model sentences here, and these are to teach you something about the genitive. So notice, euthistatu palemu pausentai. They will soon give up, stop themselves from the war. So what they're having you notice is pausantai, which is a future from pauo, which is one of our words today. It means stop or cease in the middle voice. So in the active voice, it means stop someone else, and pausantai in the middle voice, it means stop myself. I cease doing something. And the idea here is a genitive of separation, this is called. They stopped themselves from war. And then likewise, ap eche de tes thuras plethron. So he is one plethron away from the door. So he is one plethron from the door. So if you've done a little Latin, this is the ablative case in Latin. There is no more ablative case in Greek. Used to have one a long time ago, really before Greek was written down. So the genitive has to do a little double duty here, doing what in Latin we think of as an ablative job. denoting separation away from. All right, 203, a rule of syntax. The genitive may denote that from which anything is separated or distinguished. Hence it is found after verbs meaning remove, restrain, release, cease, differ, and the like. Vocabulary to add to your cards. Ta athlon, prize. Ta argurion is silver or silver money. If you know French, argent also means silver or silver money, obviously from the same word. Ha artos is wheat bread. Ha turas is cheese. Ta crucion is gold or money. Ta pselion is bracelet. Apeco. And remember, he's using that hyphen to distinguish the preposition added to these verbs, but you won't see that in a real Greek text, so remember that. Apeco, and then it follows the forms of echo, obviously. Apexo, apeskon, and so forth. Means to be distant or to hold away from. Blepo, blepsomai, eblipsa is I look or I see. Machamai, it's aorist. Emachesamein means to fight. Pauo, pauso, etc. Regular verb, stop, or in the middle, stop myself, I cease. Apo is a preposition that takes the genitive, and it means from or away from. So you can take a look at section 205 yourself. This is just testing whether or not you've memorized the new endings for the, so for example, aluata, that's imperfect middle passive. Alusata, that's aorist middle. And remember, these forms in the aorist are only aorist middle. The passive will have a different form. So let's dive right into the translations. So work those out on your own and come back and get the corrections. Heda phalanx pentaplethra apesca ton skenon. The phalanx was 5 plethra away from the tents. So it was distant 5 plethra from the tents. 2. Palasta hemeras amachanta epites stenes hadu. So the main verb, they were fighting, just a nice imperfect, amachanta. So they were fighting palas hemeras, accusative of extent of time, for many days in front or on the narrow way, on the narrow path. Ektates nesu autes meta epimpsata siton hartus kaiturus. This one is kind of, so it's this aorist middle. And so, what does that mean? He called for, or he, sent for himself from the same island grain and loaves and cheeses. 4. Alatates nikes athla, hamaxai agenanta mestai cruciu kai arguriu. This one was kind of odd. It has an odd use of the accusative, which may have thrown you. So hamaxai agenanta mestai, the wagons were full. Right, the wagons were full, and the genitive makes sense, of gold and of silver. So what's alatates nikes athla? Well, it's the prizes of the victory, right? But what case is ta athla? Well, it's got to be either nominative or accusative. We've already got a nominative in here, so it's got to be accusative, and it's just accusative of respect. So it's the wagons were full of gold and silver for the prizes of the victory. And that is an odd use of the accusative. 5. Heidekorai e blepsentai ta pselia thalmasentai auta. But the young women, the korai, if they shall see the bracelets, they will marvel at them. 6. Heptagar nuktas emenon intois kapaleiois kai epinon oinon kakon. All right, they remained, emenon, or they were remaining. They remained for 7 nights in the taverns, and they were drinking bad wine. Okay. All right. 7. Metadeton palamon thusanta tois the ois tes horas. Meta, with the genitive, it means with, but when it's followed by the accusative, it means after. So after the war, after the battle, they sacrificed, nice aorist there, they sacrificed to the gods of the land. 8. Epeigar ha ton hoi palemioi, octo parasangas apeikon tes arcas, acras rather, apausanta hoi angeloi tu fabu. Fabu. Goodness sakes. Let's do that one again. That was terrible. Epeigar ha palemioi, octo parasangas apeikon tes acras apausanta hoi angeloi tu fabu. For since the enemies, so there's your nominative, where's the verb, apeikon, were distant from the fortress, 8 parasangas, the messengers ceased from fear. So they stopped being afraid. They ceased from fear. Tiskar koluse tus kerukas leipein tahimatia into hero. For who koluse, and so that's a nice future, for who will hinder the heralds, leipein, again, here's where they use the infinitive, we would use a participle, for who will prevent the heralds from leaving their garments in the temple. Right, in section 208, if you want to work on that, it's a neat, pretty easy little bit of prose. I'll translate that as well, so pause the tape if you want to try on your own. Darei o arcantiton person esan huioduo Artaxerxes kai kuras. So it says the dative, so for Darius, the ruler of the Persians, there were 2 sons, Artaxerxes and Cyrus. Metadeton thanaton dareu hamin Artaxerxes Basiloisan. After the death of Darius if you like, on the one hand, Artaxerxes began to rule. Harakuras satrapes agenetates Phrygias. But Cyrus, on the other hand, became the satrap of Phrygia. Epapulain depoiesen hutas epitan adophan abulitagar autas labain tain arcane. But he made a plan. But this one, that is the nearest one referred to, Cyrus, but this one made a plan against his brother, for he himself wished to take the rule, to take the power. Meta epimsata dun tus strategus ton in Phrygia Helenon, kai akelosen autus stratoimata athroidzen. Oh, then he gathered, or sent for, the generals of the Greeks in Phrygia, and he ordered them to gather their armies. Kai hekon labantes stratiotas palus haplitas kai peltastas. And they came, bringing many soldiers, hoplites, and peltas. All right, that does it for lesson 19. Study up, try to get a quiz up there, and then you'll be ready for lesson 20.